Today, I want to start with a story a little bit behind the scenes of what has happened in the book and what we've written about. And so this is all about my thinking that I was going to go and change the world. I left my corporate job at Microsoft and I ventured into this new world of I know I've done a master's degree in organizational leadership. I've seen how it shouldn't be done. And now I'm going to make this impact. I am going to go and change the world. Well, I think you all know how stories like that go, don't you? And what actually happens, of course, is that we have this progression that we go through, and eventually we realize that we'd missed something. And it took a triple crisis in my life. And that triple crisis woke me up to something. And that something is consciousness. That I needed to be consciousness. I needed to learn how to lead myself, make myself my number one job. And that all great leadership starts with self-leadership and being conscious and aware of self. And that then kicked off a journey in my life that got me going. And immediately I started to see I had a bigger influence, a bigger impact. Now, remember that word. We're going to be playing with that word a little bit here this morning. So today. So welcome to this Morpheus Intelligence Update. And this is our series that we're doing around the book, which is the Lead Like Morpheus, The Genius of Conscious Leadership, which is now launched and available. Now, before I get into that, why Morpheus Intelligence Update? Well, we've been doing these series for more than 3 years now, and we've been doing a whole lot of work around providing these updates. And with the launch of the book, we thought we would focus in, and the one we're going to focus in today on is impact. Please put your comments, your questions into the chat. It's going to be so useful for us to get this because we're going to come back and revisit this in 2 weeks' time with a Q&A session. And so if you do have any questions, please put them in there. Let's see what comes through. Let's stimulate the conversation. And so any questions, any comments are most welcome. And so we're going to talk about this thing of impact. But before we do that, the book is already an Amazon bestseller. Now, this blows me away completely. But already in 3 categories on Amazon, we have bestseller status. So we are bestseller in organizational change, in communication and management, and in entrepreneurship management. So these 3 categories, we're already bestseller. And so the book is available on Amazon as a paperback or as a Kindle. And that is available now. So let's dive into part 3 of the book. We've already done these MIU YouTube sessions for part 1 and part 2. Part 1 being the Awaken, Call, Build, Release. Part 2 being the Morpheus method, which is connect, stimulate, and challenge. And now today, we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into the Morpheus Impact, because ultimately leadership is about making a difference. Leadership is about having an impact out there in the world. And that's where we're going to focus in on in today's session. As I said, please post your questions or add your comments. It's going to be really useful. So what is this impact thing? Well, ultimately, leadership is about influence. And influence is influencing in a specific direction, influencing towards results, influencing towards a culture, influencing to build a community, influencing to delight clients, whether they're internal or external clients. Influence is really what it's all about. Influence to increase staff engagement so that they can delight the clients or deliver the profitability. But ultimately, everything in leadership is some form of influence. And where does it start? Well, it starts with self. So let's jump into that piece a little bit. So the chapter 7 of the book, for the first chapter in part 3, the Morpheus Impact, is called Conscious, because all great leadership starts with consciousness. becoming more aware of self, becoming more aware of what we have that's available, what we can offer, nurturing inside of us what we want to see in others. We all know the famous Mahatma Gandhi, be the change that you want to see in the world. And this really is be the change you want to see with your clients. Be the change that you want to see in your people, in your staff. You really want to influence. And the way you do that is you start with self. And so becoming conscious, becoming aware. So what is this awareness? What is this consciousness? Well, we can, let me give you a whole bunch of angles on this, and then maybe there's a story that will emerge that'll be, make it a bit more real. So one of these things is we talk about emotional intelligence, and this fits into this consciousness place. For example, emotional intelligence, typically they talk about 4 aspects of it. I think when we talk about leadership, there's at least a 5th one, which is some kind of a positivity thing. But all emotional intelligence starts with the first thing, which is self-awareness. Are we aware of our own emotions? Now, imagine trying to help others with their emotions, or even the emotions between team members, and you're not even aware of your own emotions. You don't even know how to manage your own emotions. So this is why consciousness is so critical here. First, tally in, get connected with our own emotions. And not just our emotions. What about our intuitions? Are we aware of our intuitions? Are we aware if our intuitions are sometimes in conflict with our beliefs? What do we do with that? How do we manage that? Are we aware of our emotions that we maybe have brought into a situation that don't belong to the situation? For example, having a fight with the children before coming to work and then taking it out on a staff member or a client. These are the kinds of things we want to be aware of. So consciousness is absolutely central. And that consciousness is an awareness of all. For example, an awareness of our own genius. And when we are conscious of self, it creates capacity to be conscious of others. And that consciousness of others is the thing where we can take the emotional intelligence and turn it into relational intelligence. How aware are we? How empathetic are we of others? Are we aware of their emotions? Do we know how to manage that? Do we know how to work with that? Do we know how to leverage it? This is critical to leadership. And then, of course, we could even go one more level, which is a systems consciousness. Are we aware of the systems, relational systems around us, and how changing one person or opening us up to the intelligence of a system can actually dramatically change the dynamic, and it can feed into the productive change, the positive change that we actually have. So this is all under consciousness, and that is crucial to being able to move forward. So I said I would tell a story, and maybe a simple story, and this is to tie in with the picture here. And so we have the picture here of a labyrinth. And one of the differences between a labyrinth and a maze is that a maze has dead ends. A labyrinth does not. Labyrinths are typically very balancing. You turn left, you turn right, some 90 degrees, some 180 degrees, but you arrive at the middle. And it's an incredible experience of consciousness, especially if you're very aware of yourself while you're doing it. And I've walked quite a few labyrinths around the world. I've walked one in the Eastern Cape. I've walked another one in Dublin, Ireland. I've walked another one in the Western Cape. And I have found them to be an incredible experience every single time, an experience of becoming more conscious. And that consciousness of self has definitely increased my impact. That's why in this section on impact, we start with consciousness. The next thing that we move to is tenacity. Tenacity, and I love this picture of a flower growing in the most unbelievable situation. And I think we've all seen this. We've seen trees growing out of rocks on the side of a valley or a cliff. And this tenacity, this ability to hang in and to get and see through. I know a lot of people use the word grit these days, the grit to see something through. For me, this 100% builds on consciousness, because one of the things we want to be conscious of is our own purpose. And when we are very clear on why we are, it is much better, much easier to be tenacious about it. So to me, the idea of tenacity is not an idea of willpower. And we talk about this extensively in the book, is that willpower is now researched to be a very finite resource. In fact, how's this for a statistic? The people who tested to have the strongest willpower use it the least. What does that mean? Well, what they discovered is that people who consistently have very, very strong willpower, they actually don't use it a lot because they know how precious a resource it is. So they create their days in such a way that things come out of flow, things come out that don't require willpower, so that when willpower is required, there is capacity. And that is one of the themes of conscious leadership, is conscious leadership builds capacity. It constantly is building and growing capacity. And that's really what conscious leadership is all about. And so that is central to this idea of being tenacious. Tenacity does not come from, I'm going to see this through, I'm going to see this through, I'm going to see this through, because it's a finite resource that we're tapping into there. Tenacity comes from knowing what we know like we know in our knower, and that breeds incredible tenacity. So for example, I've recently been doing some work actually with a therapist, and there was a thing where there's been messages my whole life I've been getting that somehow contradict a little bit about what I do. And she just simply asked this question, and she said, so Ian, what do you know, and what have you always known? And I know Marcus Buckingham talks a lot about this. He says, you've always known the truth about you. And what I realized is I've always known that I am here to speak. And I've known this since I was a child. And so that gives me tenacity as there's been struggles in building a business, or there's been struggles in leading people, or there's been struggles in my personal life. And I'm talking about, the last 40 years. But they've all grown me to this place where I know, like I know in my knower, why I'm here. And it is now leading to the big impact, the big success. And so where do we go from the story of conscious, tenacious? What is the last chapter of the book? Well, the last chapter of the book is triumphant. You see, this impact trilogy, if you like, this third part of the book with its 3 chapters going conscious, tenacious, and triumphant. The triumphant is the result of the consciousness and the tenacity. And this triumph, this is where we leave a legacy. This is where we are building towards something that is bigger and beyond ourselves. This is where we have this incredible ability to not only produce results, because as leaders we need a direct influence, but even more so for results to be produced through our people, through what we build. And so this triumphant is not just this quarter's results. It's actually building the kind of thing that's already starting to take care of next quarter's results and next quarter's results and next quarter's results. And the staff engagement that is increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing. The client satisfaction that is increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing. And the culture that we're developing in our business that is growing and growing and growing, and where we need to bring change. We're clever and intelligent about building change that really works. Because what have we discovered? That leaders sometimes think that announcing the change is the change, and then about less than 15% of those changes actually work. So we want to do the kinds of things that create a longer term culture, that build towards something that is going to last, something that is going to be around for a very, very long time. And so that's what we're aiming for here. So this consciousness that creates the tenacity that sees us through, the seeing us through is going to leave a legacy. ultimately, that's what this is all about. It is, and many people say to me, oh, but I don't really need to leave a legacy. Well, do you want to leave the planet the way you found it? Do you want to leave everything the way it was when you arrived? And everybody says, no, 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 no. So, well, then you want to leave a legacy. You want to make a difference. And that is what people are really talking about here. And that's what people are really needing. And so this three-part impact of leadership, of conscious, tenacious, and triumphant, is where the kind of leadership that comes out of consciousness, the kind of tenacity that comes out of consciousness, results in the success that we're really looking for, the lasting success, the sustainable success. And that is a thing that we're looking for, not just this quarter's results, but actually a longer term result. I'm going to just focus in on building culture for a moment. It's been an area that I've had a lot of experience in working with changing culture, building culture, not only in my studies, but also in the work I've done with clients, and even in one of my previous roles where I was a designated culture champion. And one of the things that comes up so clearly with this is that when we are taking a longer term view, we're actually creating longer term success. And businesses that invest in their culture have now been proven to have a 5 times bigger return, a growth in sales than the average on the stock exchange, a 4 times greater growth in market capitalization. So there's something about, people think, oh, but I want, if I just fix this quarter's results, it's going to push the share price up. But is it sustainable? The sustainable share price increase, the sustainable owner value, the sustainable bottom line comes from building a culture. And the evidence is very, very clear on that. So those are our 3 parts, and I'm going to come back to a conclusion in a moment, but just to highlight that this is the 3rd part of Lead Like Morpheus, the book that's just recently launched, and we've been building towards this and going through each of the 3 parts. So if you missed out on part 1 and part 2, just go back, you'll find those available, and you'll be able to watch those videos as well. So where does this place us? Well, if you're interested in the book, here's the QR code. Please feel free to click on this, or I think it's in the chat as well. But if you just use the QR code, and the QR code is going to give you access to the book onto Amazon, which gives you access to the Kindle version and the paperback version, and you can go and get the book there. So excellent. Thank you for that. Now, let's remember that the next session, which is exactly 2 weeks' time, please post your questions, please post your comments. All your comments and questions feed in to what we will deliver in that session, where we're going to be doing a Q&A on this 3rd part of the book. And that will be in 2 weeks' time, and that will give us an opportunity to hear what you want. What are you struggling with? What are your thoughts on this idea of having an impact through being conscious, tenacious, and triumphant? Please participate, ask questions as you are watching the video, and we will answer those and deal with them in our Q&A session, which is coming up in 2 weeks' time. So this has been part 3, the Morpheus Impact. And I just want to talk a little bit about my clients and what we're seeing there, because we are consistently seeing all sorts of possibilities of people coming to this idea of conscious leadership. Conscious leadership is about building capacity. And what we're seeing repeatedly is where our leaders are either just focusing on the external pressure, the external driver of their people needs, either the clients or the staff, and they are so focused and sucked into that they are not able to elevate and see the bigger picture and think strategically about how they deal with these people pressures. So that their heart is good, they're really trying to help, but they often end up with their people become dependent on them as opposed to becoming independent, which we talked about a lot in part 1 of the book. The other extreme that we see, and we get this regularly, is where the leader is so focused on the results, the try harder, and every solution is, let me just try harder. Inch by inch, we will win this battle. Some of you might remember that from Any Given Sunday. So there are these constant forces of try harder, or my people need me. And what very often happens is we are so focused on these external pressures and trying to deal with them because they are just coming at us relentlessly, that we have not built the capacity to think about them with wisdom. All right, are we back? Sorry, there seemed to have been a little internet hiccup there. I think we're back. Right, so let me continue. So just to finish off, actually, that's all I really wanted to do, was to finish off. And the finishing off is this, that this Morpheus Impact, this idea is that we are creating a capacity to give us sustained tenacity and sustained triumph, sustained success. And that sustained success is what's going to come from this consciousness that we've been talking about. So hopefully that's useful to you, and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time with the Q&A. And with that Q&A, please, if you'd like to get the book, I'll show the QR code again if anybody wants to get that, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.